The rule that everyone on the Formula 1 grid seems to have forgotten about has got a few teams panicking with just 4 races to go in 2022. So what is this rule? Well, at the start of the 2022 season, the FIA introduced a new regulation that seeks to give young drivers and fresh talent a chance to get behind the wheel of a Formula 1 car and prove what they can do. It states that during 2 FP1 sessions over the course of the season, every team on the grid have to give up one of their cars to make way for a rookie driver. So for instance, at McLaren, Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo have to give up at least 1 free practice session each to a less experienced driver. This rookie driver can't have taken part in more than 2 Grand Prix and will of course have to have enough super license points to allow them to get behind the wheel of a Formula 1 car. But don't get me started on super license points. But despite the fact that it's in the regulations and mandatory for all 10 teams to do, many teams on the grid still haven't actually completed this task and haven't released when they plan to do so, even though we only have 4 races left. So let's take a look at each team and see who looks set to keep the FIA happy and who might be in a little bit of trouble. Let's start with the teams that look set to complete the task and work our way down to those that might be calling up someone for Abu Dhabi in a bit of a panic. It's not often that Aston Martin are at the top of these lists when it comes to Formula 1, but the team looks set to get themselves 2 rookie FP1 sessions done quite easily. The first coming when Nyck de Vries replaced Sebastian Vettel at Monza for the Italian Grand Prix in FP1, and we all know how good a weekend that turned out to be for the Dutchman. So with that first one ticked off the list at race 16 and an exceptional performance under his belt, everyone was expecting the Dutchman to come back into the Aston Martin setup sometime later on in the year too. But Aston Martin then announced that the newly crowned Formula 2 champion Felipe Drugovich has become the first member of their driver development program. This is a big step forward for the team that has threatened to make waves in Formula 1 since coming in and taking over from Racing Point in 2021. So Drugovich is now planned to come in for a session at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, replacing Lance Stroll, and I'm very excited to see what the Formula 2 champion can do in a Formula 1 car, especially as Aston Martin are probably going to be trying to line up the Brazilian for a Formula 1 seat in the near future. Next up is Williams, who may not get their financial paperwork in on time, but they have managed to plan out their free practice sessions for the season already. One of which has already been completed at the Spanish Grand Prix weekend as Alex Albon stepped aside and was replaced by Nyck de Vries. Little did Alex know that he would also be coming to take his points at Monza later on in the year too. By the way, I know that this is the second time in 2 teams that he's come up, but Nyck de Vries just absolutely loves a free practice session. Like Aston Martin, Williams also have their own Formula 2 driver that they're looking to get into a session later on in the season. American driver and Williams Jr. Logan Sargent will be taking the place of Nicholas Latifi in a free practice session for the United States Grand Prix. And you can already see the storylines. When Sargent goes faster in FP1 than Latifi in FP2, it's just undoubtedly going to happen. It's also a great opportunity for Logan Sargent to show that he is ready for Formula 1. With 1 race left in the Formula 2 season, he looks like he's going to end up finishing 3rd, which will give him enough super license points to step up into Formula 1. And with Latifi leaving Formula 1 for 2023, Logan Sargent is being talked about as the obvious replacement for the Canadian at Williams alongside Alex Albon. Next up is Haas, who also have their rookie free practice sessions all planned out for the rest of the season. Neither have taken place yet, but they have taken the easy route here really. Pietro Fittipaldi is the team's test driver and reserve driver, and he just about qualifies, having only taken part in 2 Grand Prix back in 2020, replacing Romain Grosjean. So he'll be taking part in both free practice sessions for the team, first of all in Mexico and then in Abu Dhabi at the end of the season, replacing Kevin Magnussen and Mick Schumacher. It's just a shame that realistically the Brazilian-American is very unlikely to step up into Formula 1 anytime soon, as Haas are more likely to get Nico Hülkenberg or Antonio Giovinazzi for the 2023 campaign. Both of which are nowhere near qualifying as being a rookie that the team could have got in for one of these sessions to test them out in their car. Ferrari are seemingly taking the same approach as Haas for their rookie sessions. Robert Schwartzman is currently the test driver for the Italian team, and we've seen him in the background a few times over the course of the season so far. We now know that Schwartzman will be wearing red at the United States Grand Prix, although we don't know yet which of the Ferrari drivers in Leclerc or Sainz that he will be replacing. But I suppose it doesn't matter too much, because Ferrari race director Laurent Mekies confirmed that Schwartzman would be completing 2 free practice 1 sessions for the team in 2022. So whoever he doesn't replace in the US, he'll replace later on in the year. The location of Schwartzman's second free practice session hasn't been confirmed yet, but looking at the pattern most teams are following, it seems like it will be as late on in the year as possible in Abu Dhabi. And let's group all 3 Ferrari-powered teams together, as Alfa Romeo also have a pretty easy and obvious option for their rookie free practice sessions. Although Bottas and Zhou have been confirmed as the driver pairing for the 2023 season, they have an incredibly hot prospect waiting in the wings in the form of Theo Pourchaire. The French driver is in 2nd place in the Formula 2 Championship and has said himself that he's looking for a new challenge in the near future. Pourchaire, I imagine, will also end up taking part in 2 free practice sessions this season. Like Schwartzman, the first of the Frenchman's outings will be taking place at the United States Grand Prix, replacing Valtteri Bottas. Although we're still unaware of when and where Joe will be stepping aside for his free practice session this season. When I was first writing this script, McLaren could have been in a bit of trouble, and considering they have about 1,000 drivers on their books with Formula 1, Indy, and Formula E teams, it felt strange that they haven't done any of these sessions yet. But McLaren have just announced who will be taking part in their rookie sessions, and the shock is that 2023 driver Oscar Piastri is not one of them. In fact, both of McLaren's sessions will be headed to drivers that are currently part of their IndyCar project. Alex Palou will be coming in for the United States Grand Prix free practice sessions to replace the departing Daniel Ricciardo. And at his favourite circuit, that really is salt in the wound for the Australian. Whereas Lando Norris is set to be replaced by Pato O'Ward in Abu Dhabi. Both Alex and Pato impressed in their recent tests in Barcelona and Austria with last year's McLaren car, so it would be great to see how these IndyCar stars transition into the new style of 2022 Formula 1 car. But part of me is wondering where Oscar Piastri has disappeared off to recently. Now here is where it gets a little bit tricky. We have AlphaTauri, Mercedes, Red Bull and Alpine left to discuss, and due to recent transfers and news updates up and down the grid, they could all be in a little bit of trouble. Let's start at AlphaTauri, as they have actually already completed one of their 2 sessions. Liam Lawson was behind the wheel of the AlphaTauri car in Spa for the start of the Belgian Grand Prix weekend, where he replaced the recently announced Alpine driver for 2023, Pierre Gasly. Now, AlphaTauri have more than enough Formula 2 Red Bull juniors to pick from when it comes to rookie sessions, but they just announced that Gasly will be replaced with Nick de Vries. So surely it would make more sense for the AlphaTauri team to try and get Nick in for a free practice session in the car before he takes on the full-time seat next year. And for Nick, it makes perfect sense too, as he gets to know the team in a competitive free practice session, so he can start to put the pieces in place and make himself feel more comfortable. The problem they have is that Mercedes already have used Nick de Vries for one of their 2 free practice sessions at the French Grand Prix, where the Dutchman replaced Lewis Hamilton. And with Nick still part of the Mercedes system until the end of the year, I imagine they were also hoping to get him into the car in the later part of the season too. But now that they know Nick is moving into the Red Bull franchise next year, will they still want to give him that drive? If they don't, they have to find somebody else, and beyond George and Lewis, the only other driver that they've got currently in and around their Formula 1 setup is Stoffel van Dorn, who is not even close to eligible when it comes to the rookie requirements. So Mercedes may have to turn to Frederik Vesti, who's currently in Formula 2 and has had quite a middling season really. The Danish driver probably wouldn't have expected to have a call up to the Mercedes Formula 1 team so soon, but he will have to show his absolute A game if he does get the chance to help set up the car later on in the year. Nick de Vries picking up a seat hasn't made it easy for these teams, has he? With the possibility of 2 or 3 teams relying on him for free practice sessions in 4 races, he looks set to be a very busy bee. And if he does get a session in for AlphaTauri, he will have raced for 4 of the 10 teams this season. That is absolutely crazy. Red Bull have a similar problem to AlphaTauri. Though they have a plethora of Red Bull juniors to pick from Formula 2, none of them have been overly inspiring this season. Yuri Vips took their first rookie free practice session on the Spanish Grand Prix weekend, replacing Sergio Perez. Of course, that was before the incident. But who on earth would want to come in and replace Max Verstappen after he's just been crowned double world champion in one of the most dominant performances we've ever seen? And as I said, the Red Bull Juniors aren't having the best of seasons as it is. De Ruvela is currently the highest in the Formula 2 standings. Iwasa, Lawson, Vips, and Hauger are also options for the Red Bull setup, but none of them have yet been confirmed to take a free practice session in Formula 1. To be fair, if Nick de Vries is going to get a session at AlphaTauri, then they may get him a session at Red Bull too. Why not? He's driven for everyone else this season. Last but most definitely not least is Alpine. This could be a bit awkward. Remember their wonder kid test driver, Oscar Piastri? He may have been lined up to take part in a free practice session or 2 with Alpine after the summer break. Considering his move away from Alpine to McLaren next year, after the team announced him as the replacement for Fernando Alonso, I can't imagine Alpine have forgotten all about that, because the rest of the Formula 1 world most definitely have not. Doohan and Caldwell are the 2 Alpine juniors that are most likely to be called upon to take that step up from Formula 2 into a Formula 1 rookie free practice session, but we have no idea when or where either of them will take part in an Alpine seat, and considering there are only 4 races left, we have heard nothing from Alpine at all. I'm honestly starting to get a little bit worried that the French team aren't going to get these rookie sessions done. Not only has Oscar Piastri upset the apple cart for the 2023 season for the team, he's also made part of their 2022 season incredibly difficult too. Unless he does get a shock rookie session with Alpine, which would be incredibly awkward for both parties involved. That's just a quick roundup of all the rookies we still have yet to come in the 2022 season, and the teams that might be calling up some pretty left field drivers, considering we only have 4 races left to go. Also, if there's one free practice session to make sure you watch for the rest of the season, I feel like Abu Dhabi is the one. At this rate, it's basically turning into a rookie session, which I feel like Formula 1 could introduce at some point. Imagine a session with 10 different rookies all at once in Formula 1. I would personally love to see it. Let me know which rookie you're most excited to see in the remaining 4 races in the comments down below. And whilst you're down there, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I'll see you next time.